All right. Welcome back, everyone, to our latest episode of The Nest. That is the New England Sports Talk. Our name may have changed, but our content has not. And we are back on this Christmas Eve to preview the New England Patriots as they will welcome in the Buffalo Bills to Gillette Stadium for a critical divisional matchup, as the AFC East division title still remains undecided. The Patriots, of course, are coming off of a 27-17 loss against the Indianapolis Colts last Saturday night, which ended their 7-game winning streak, and they are now 9-5. The Bills snapped a 2-game losing streak with a 31-14 win over the Carolina Panthers back on Sunday, and they are now 8-6. And of course, this is going to be the second meeting between these two teams, as the Patriots won the Monday night matchup at Highmark Stadium back in December 6th by a 14-10 score. And joining me for today's episode are Anirban Chakraborty and our expert Ravi Bajpai. Guys, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing well. Happy Christmas Eve to everyone out there, and excited to be here.
Thanks for having me. Happy holidays to everyone.
Exactly. Yeah. Happy holidays to everyone as well. All our listeners, all our viewers. Very happy to have you guys supporting us throughout the process, as we now are the Nest. And we are looking forward to this journey together. It's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, let's just talk about this Patriots-Bills matchup. So obviously, yeah, second time meeting, and the Bills don't really have a lot of game film on Mac Jones as a thrower against them, right? Because he only threw 3 times last time. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this time Mac Jones is going to have to throw more than 3 times. I mean, last time he was 2 of 3 with 19 yards, and the Patriots basically ran that ball 46 times for 222 yards. Damien Harris, 10 carries, 111 yards, 1 touchdown, which was on the 64-yard run. Ramondre Stevenson had a great game too, 24 carries for 78 yards. And Josh Allen that day, 15 of 30, 145 yards. He had 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And the Bills' run game, well, okay, 25 carries for 99 yards. So that was the first matchup going into statistics. So Cole Beasley for the Bills, he's going to be out for this game. And Kendrick Bourne was put on the COVID list. However, Bill Belichick does seem pretty optimistic, or he at least expressed some amount of optimism that Bourne would be able to play Sunday. So that would be big. But yeah, let's just talk about this game. What are the key components that you think the Patriots need to focus on to win this game? This is kind of a must-win game now for the Patriots to really kind of secure the AFC East division. So yeah, let's just get started. Ravi, what do you think?
So the thing that I'm most concerned about going into this game is our run defense. We had a pretty huge problem against the Colts, obviously. Jonathan Taylor absolutely ran over us the entire game. And in general, we have, one of the worst ranked run defenses in the league, where I think we're like 26 in terms of yards allowed. So I'm very concerned with that going into this game. So the Bills generally don't run the ball that often. They mostly focus on their passing attack. However, they did have a lot of success with us with Singletary in the game that we played 2 weeks ago. And I think the thing that I'm most concerned about is that they look at the Colts game. They look at some of our previous games against like the Titans and other teams, and they're like, okay, we can really open things up for Josh Allen if we run the ball consistently again. And I think that's going to be a very concerning thing going into this game. So that's going to be the thing that I'm going to be watching most.
Yeah, you are right. Like, the run defense is not that great. Like, for the Patriots, you mentioned 26th, so they're actually 24th in the NFL, allowing 122.4 yards through the ground. But that number was also probably impacted by the 226 rushing yards they allowed to the Colts back on Saturday. And Jonathan Taylor had 29 carries for 170 yards. However, one thing I'd like to maybe just push back on a little bit, like, Jonathan Taylor, while he did have that 167-yard run, which kind of iced that game, like, overall, I thought the Patriots did decent in kind of limiting the impact he made. Like, I mean, if you take away that one run for 67 yards, he had 28 carries for 103 yards. And for Jonathan Taylor, I feel like most defenses are okay with that type of stat line, right? 28 carries for 103 yards. It was that one carry that for 67 yards at the end that really kind of inflated that total up. So I do feel like the run defense is like okay, but that said, like, I do agree, like, the Titans, like, they did show a problem. Like, if you remember, like, Dontrell Hilliard against the Titans, he had like a 64-yard touchdown run right before halftime. So I think that's like something that is a little bit worrying. So I do agree with you on that. Like it has like kind of come up a couple times now where like sort of the run defense has allowed a couple really big like touchdown runs, like over 60 yards. So yeah, I mean, that is one thing I am a little concerned about. Devin Singletary also is heating up now. Like he had a good game against the Panthers, and like against the Patriots, he didn't really do that much, but that's because like the whole like offense was kind of limited by for both teams, right? Because of the wind situation. And yeah, so I agree with you. Like I think like this is gonna be the type of game where like we'll have to see what happens sort of going forward. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, Anirban, what are your thoughts? Like initial thoughts on this game on Sunday?
I think that my initial thoughts are kind of really a big question mark about who exactly is going to be available on the Patriots, right? Because I know you mentioned Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. We know Ramondre Stevenson did not participate in practice this week. But of course, it's football. It's really difficult to tell on a given week because I mean we all know there's so many players who are always on the limited list like every week. Like I think I've seen players like Ezekiel Elliott routinely not participate in practice and then just go out and play. So I think it's gonna be something where we might be surprised unpleasantly by like a few people like who are currently limited, like Juwan Bentley or even Adrian Phillips. We're just hoping that all of them are able to play. But in the case they don't, we know Enkil Harry had limited availability in practice as well. So in the very worst case scenario, it could be a very different Patriots team being fielded. Like we're talking about like practice squad wide receivers being elevated in like the worst case scenario. But I don't think it'll get to that point. Um, I do think, of course, so we're gonna have to get used to a different kind of game plan. And especially, I know Ravi and you were both bringing up the run defense. I think that's gonna be important, especially because of the Bills. We're talking about the Patriots, who they're missing. Let's look at who the Bills are missing. The Bills are missing Cole Beasley for sure, right? Tested positive for COVID. They're also missing Gabriel Davis, most likely, who also tested positive for COVID. He's on the COVID list. And I just want to say that I think Gabriel Davis is going to be an even bigger miss for them than Cole Beasley because this season, Gabriel Davis has 6 receiving touchdowns, over 400 yards. He's been a really valuable red zone target for Josh Allen. In fact, if you look at a lot of their, like for example, Gabriel Davis is the only one who grabbed a touchdown against the Patriots. He had 2 touchdowns, I believe, against the Panthers, one against the Bucks, so on and so forth. I think we're seeing this season that Josh Allen's really relied on Gabriel Davis, whereas last season he probably would have just kept on to Stephon Diggs, right? That's where Diggs had his career season last year. This year, I think Gabriel Davis has been a big extra weapon for Josh Allen. So I think that's gonna be a big miss for him because I think Gabriel Davis is definitely a player he looks for to get touchdowns. So in that case, I wouldn't be surprised to see them rely more on the run game. But what I will say is I feel like at the end of the day, I don't really know how the Bills have really proved how much of a fearsome run attack they've been since maybe the first few games of the season when we saw Devin Singletary playing really well. Um, and we definitely saw them having a lot of flux in the position last few weeks with players like Zach Moss being in and out, players like Matt Breida being in and out. So I still am a little nervous, I guess, about the run defense, but only really because I feel like this is going to be kind of a game of motivation. The Bills are going to be coming in. We all know that they were very, very angry after their loss to the Patriots. We all know their coach, Sean McDermott, was very careful not to give any praise at all to Bill Belichick or the Patriots for that one, saying that it was basically completely their fault. I can expect a pretty scrappy game here, pretty physical, maybe a few altercations. Not, I think we can definitely see a higher temperature game like we saw against Indy. But I am a little worried about this game in the context of a response. I really feel like whereas against Indy we could have afforded to lose that game and still feel like pretty good. I think this game is a must win for us, not only for the context of the AFC but also morale heading into the playoffs. And also, I mean, we're after this we're going to be playing eventually the Miami Dolphins, right? This is a game I think we really, really need to win. So that's probably the biggest thing I'm worried about. I'm more worried about the implications, I guess, if that makes sense, about what this game means. And I hope that we're taking it seriously. I think we will be, especially given the kind of narrow loss we have to the Colts. I think that'll help us focus.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, I mean, I think against the Colts, we saw so much uncharacteristic play, right? Like the block punt, the field goal, like jumping offsides on a field goal, like all sorts of like uncharacteristic mistakes that this team made. Mac Jones threw some bad interceptions, like 2 picks. The first one was a very bad throw. The second one was also not a good decision on his part. So I think at this point, like obviously, like you can't like do the whole game plan again of like what three like passes, but I do think like it is going to be a run heavy game, and one huge thing is Damian Harris is going to be back this game, and he's kind of the bell cow running back for this season. I like Ramondre Stevenson going forward, but I think for this year, 2021, Damian Harris needs to be healthy for this team to be operating at full potential. And Damian Harris is going to be back for this game. So him and Stevenson as a duo with Brandon Bolden, I like that running back trio for this game. Like that's essentially the running back trio that we used against the Bills in week 13 or 14 with the Monday night game. Yeah, week 13. Yep. So basically, yeah. And yeah, losing Gabriel Davis is going to be a massive blow for the Bills because I mean I had highlighted Davis like he's been on fire recently, 4 touchdowns the last 3 games. So clearly he's been the focus. But yeah, let's see what happens there. But like yeah, I mean Ravi, is there any other like concern you have for this game?
I think that's definitely my main concern. Obviously, the passing attack by Josh Allen. Even if he just has Sanders and Stephon Diggs, is going to be pretty, very potent, and he no longer has to deal with the weather conditions that he did last game. So, and he's still he was still like a very good passer that game. Um, so I think the personally the combination of him, just like the excellence that he's shown most of the season, and the fact that the Patriots run defense just like in general seems to be not doing well. Maybe yeah, I will concede your point that the numbers against the Colts doesn't tell the whole story, but I think in general the run defense hasn't been great, and I think towards the end of the game against the Bills, they started to realize that they could really uh, they could run on their offense on their defense more and take some huge gashes out. So I think that combination is going to be very very threatening for the Patriots, and I just don't know. I don't know if we'll compensate. Our run, as you mentioned, our run offense last week was not that great, but that was also because we had Damian Harris out. So I think that will be very potent. But the other main factor that I'm going to be looking at is how Mac Jones performs against the number one pass defense in the league. Now they lost White, so maybe it's not as good as its height this season. But how Mac Jones basically in my mind the X factor for each game is going to be on our side how well Mac Jones does against the Bills pass defense, and then on their side if they can really get their run game going, which definitely concerns me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely in terms of passing defense, I also think it's another thing where we will have to keep an eye out on availability heading in because the Bills definitely have a few starters on defense who've been limited or doubtful for the game. For example, cornerback Cam Lewis, safety Micah Hyde, who I think has been pretty prominent, prominent name. Defensive end Jerry Hughes wasn't full participation, but apparently battling a neck problem. This could be a really that could have implications, I guess. So it is one of those things where who's going to be available could actually end up being a pretty important factor in this game as well.
Yeah, and also just one thing to note. So Ravi, yeah, like I think you brought up an excellent point because like the Bills pass defense is like first in the NFL, 175.6 yards through the air. The run defense for the Bills is kind of like okay, it's like 16th in the NFL, and I think the Patriots really found that out and exploited it. 122.4 yards allowed through the ground. And like, but the pass defense is sort of a problem for like the Patriots against the Bills because yeah, the Bills have only allowed one guy to throw for 300 yards against them all season. That was Tom Brady. So Yeah, that's already kind of like setting the bar a little high. So like on who has done it so far. So yeah, like I mean, I think we'll have to see what happens there. Like I mean, the Patriots secondary is pretty good though. Like it's third in the NFL, allowing 185.1 yards through the air, and the run defense, yeah, 24th as I mentioned. So I am a little concerned, but I think Josh Allen, like this season, he's kind of, I mean, he's still very good. So I think he's shown that he's the real deal. But I think he's kind of fallen off a bit from that MVP season in 2020, or the MVP caliber season. He didn't win MVP, but MVP finalist season in 2020. I think he's kind of taken a step back from that year. He's still a very good player, but I think he has shown that he is still capable of making bad decisions. Kind of a lot of the stuff we sort of saw before in 2019, I'm seeing it a bit more. And he did do well against the Patriots in the wind, like even against the wind, like that final couple drives, he was actually able to throw the ball against the wind. And with Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders still there, I think the Bills offense is still good enough. So, I mean, JC Jackson, I mean, he was just named to the Pro Bowl, right, as a starter, and well deserved. JC Jackson is going to have to live up to that Pro Bowl status tomorrow, because if he cannot neutralize Stephon Diggs, that is going to be a major problem for the Patriots. Like obviously they're without Cole Beasley and Gabriel Davis, and that is going to definitely hurt the Bills. But Stephon Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders are both capable of making big plays still. I know that from experience. All of us know that. So JC Jackson is going to have to be on his A game. And Matt Judon, not a great game against Indianapolis, another Pro Bowl starter, or not a Pro Bowl starter, but a Pro Bowl. He was named to the Pro Bowl as well. Congratulations, by the way, to Slater, Judon, and Jackson. Well-deserved Pro Bowl like elections this year. So all three of them, happy to see them there, that well deserved. But all three of them are going to need to be better at their facet of the game than they were against Indianapolis. Later on special teams, obviously some miscues on that end, not really on against Indianapolis, but Judon and Jackson on the defensive end, we need better performances against the Bills, because what happened last Saturday against Indianapolis, you can't have that again, because otherwise this team is capable of, like, they're not perfect. They're not good enough to just sort of like overcome kind of like consistent mistakes and stuff like that at this point. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's so we'll get into a score prediction next, but does anyone else want to bring up any other like conversation points for this game?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like related to the passing ability and such. I think our defense did show like I said, yeah, I think we were impressed with Josh Allen's ability to throw into the wind and stuff, but I think our defense was able to play him really well, specifically in limiting in limiting his mobility. If you look at a lot of the way our defense was lined up in their one-on-one matchups, a lot of them included the Patriots defense, whether it's Matt Judon or someone else kind of setting the edge, such that whenever Josh Allen tried to break out of the pocket and sprint up, gain 20 yards, the Patriots had the ability to at least threaten him. And we actually saw like on multiple plays that he was trying to reach out, and then we saw a player like Judon or Barmore make a move towards him, and then he had to basically recalibrate and was forced into throwing the ball instead of running. So I think we do have the tactical plan, and that'll be really important. And this was actually an interesting point, actually, in one of the Boston and Herald article I recently read by Karen Jurigian, in which she's kind of pointing out this was actually a tongue-in-cheek, perhaps, comment by Bill Belichick when asked about his planning for the Bills and how they'd have to throw the ball more, and he actually basically said, yeah, to be honest, they probably don't know what to expect because they haven't actually. We can pretty much use our full passing play repertoire against them because they saw absolutely nothing the last time they played us. So I don't think we can actually, as much as tongue in cheek that is very true. This season, the Bills have literally no experience with our passing offense. They haven't played us. They don't have the film against us from against their defense specifically, right? So I think that's something that can actually come into mind. Like, yes, they can look at how we play in against India or whatever, but it's always different when you have a lot of film there. And another thing to keep in mind too is that I think I wouldn't be surprised if we start again with a punishing ground game, at least just to test the waters, because we all know how well that worked, at least for like the first 3.5 quarters of the game, essentially against Buffalo the first time. And honestly, like I wouldn't be surprised to see us start our first few drives like three downs running. I would not be surprised, and then maybe Mac Jones throws on the fourth. And in that case, if we only get like one first down in the whole first quarter, then at that point maybe we'll switch to seeing more of a balanced approach. But I think that's going to be looking out for. The important thing here is that we want to get a lead early, or at least keep the game within one score early, because against Indy we saw that once we're in the situation of being down multiple scores, that's when you start seeing the pressure. That's when you see Mac Jones really being forced to make plays that might lead to interceptions and stuff. I think if we can keep the game close and possibly even snag an early touchdown early and kind of get plays like that on our side, I think that's gonna be really important.
Yeah, and the only things I'd add to that is just to follow up on Anirban's point about the defense. Or follow up on this point about the defense is that last week against the Panthers actually managed to get 4 sacks against Josh Allen, and we got 2 the previous week. So that could be a potential weakness of that we could exploit if lately their offensive line hasn't been protecting them to great effect. And the other thing that I might add, just as like an interesting point, is that psychologically, I feel like that previous game that we've had against the Bills, in which we just continuously rammed and run on them the entire game, and they knew, like many people have pointed out, they knew exactly what was coming, and they still couldn't prevent it. That is really tough to deal with. If you're in charge of blocking our running attack this game, like you are going to be really worried. You're going to be like, this is going to be another really long game, and I threw everything at them, and they couldn't do anything about it. So sure, they'll go through the film, they'll look at all our like 50 something runs on them and try and learn something from it. But at the end of the day, like they knew what was coming, they couldn't stop it, and they're in for round 2, and they're definitely gonna have to, like, that's definitely gonna be one of the key components of our offense. So I don't know, maybe they could scheme better against it, and maybe they'll solve it. But at the end of the day, I'm actually not quite sure about that. I think psychologically that's gonna be tough.
And I think that's a really good point, Ravi, like the psychological impact, because Bill Belichick, he knows exactly probably, or he knows how the Bills are probably feeling. So it would not surprise any of us, right? If the Patriots just start off the game, just handing it off to David Harris, and then he gets a first down on a run, like a 20-yard run, just to mess with the Bills psychologically and say, oh yeah, this is going to happen again. Yeah, we're not going to stop just because last game. We're going to control the flow of the game. Bill Belichick is not the type of guy who really cares about like what people think or anything like that. Like for him, if it works, he's just going to keep doing it. And that's what happened against the Bills, right? The reason they were able to do it was because they got the lead, they were able to control the flow of the game. And also the Bills had no answer for the run game, right? When they did, it was kind of too late in the game by then. But the Bills really had no answer for Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. So yeah, I mean, if the Bills are basically playing like that again, where they're consistently allowing rushes and first downs to Ramondre Stevenson, Brandon Bolden, and Damian Harris, then I could see, like, I don't think Mac Jones again is going to throw 3 times. I think he's probably going to throw 10 or 15 times this game, but I do think it's still going to be a run heavy game. And yeah, so but like Bill Belichick knows this very well. He knows how these coaches are thinking. He's been around. He's been a coach in this league for like 40 years or so. He knows football in and out at this point. He knows how people are feeling in given situations. He's been in pretty much probably any situation as a coach in terms of like score, outcome, what's going on. So he understands this better than anyone. And he knows that Sean McDermott is pissed, and so is the rest of that team. They're sort of pissed, and they're also sort of feeling like kind of down about everything right now, right? Like they're sort of like kind of in this like kind of embarrassed situation right now. So he knows all that stuff, and he knows psychologically how he can sort of use that to the Patriots' advantage. So I think that's going to be a very, very important thing going into the game on Sunday. So yeah, that's going to be the thing. But yeah, no, excellent point, Ravi. The psychological impact. I totally think Bill Belichick is going to use that to the Patriots' advantage. So yeah, let's talk about the score prediction. So I mean, this is going to be a huge game. And just as a note to all of our listeners, we are actually, Anirban and I are going to be attending the game along with our fellow co-host, Rohan Venkatesh, who is not with us today, but he will be with us Sunday to attend the game. Ravi, we would wish that you could join at some point, maybe going forward, but you'll be there in spirit for sure.
I would love to go sometime, and I wish you could be there this time, but a different time for sure.
You'll be there in spirit with us, though. Don't worry. But yeah, let's talk about the prediction. Ravi, let's go with you. Will Anirban, I, and Rohan, will the 3 of us see a win or a loss Sunday?
So I am sadly going to go for a loss. I think that it's going to be 26-24 Bills, very close. I think it's going to be, as we've talked about, a run-heavy game from the Patriots, mostly a pass-heavy game from the Bills, but, either side will complement those with the other portion of their attack, so we won't see a really one-sided game. But I think the Bills will prove too much this game. However, as like the other point that I'd like to bring up is how much these games will actually matter. As we saw last season, the Bucks lost to the Saints in both their regular season games and like pretty convincingly, and then they looked back at the film, they tried to understand what went wrong, and they very convincingly dispatched them in the playoffs. So I think both teams will also be looking forward to the playoffs. And if we drop this game and it's very close, and we go back and we try and understand if we meet the Bills in the future, what we can do, I think it'll be okay. I think both teams are most likely going to be playoff teams unless the Dolphins pull something very tricky. But yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm unfortunately I'm gonna be a little biased this game. Like I don't want to see a loss since I'm going to the game. And the Patriots are 3-0 at games I've attended, so I'd like to keep that streak going. So I'll say Patriots 20, Bills 17. But yeah, Ravi, like your score is also very possible. I don't want to imagine a loss in this situation. So I have to go with the win.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I also do see this as a game that we can take. I don't see us this season losing 2 games in a row, at least at this stage. So I think that does mean something. We're coming off a little bit of extra rest, right? That's also going to be helpful for us. And honestly, like we all talked about, you talked about psychology. It's also, think about it being a home game, right? Imagine the impact of having like Damien Harris just like on a punishing 100-yard rushing attack, ending on a touchdown. Imagine how loud the stadium's going to get. Imagine, just the side parts of just having home field advantage. I could totally see this being a game where we take the lead early and just keep them at slightly enough arm's length, not enough that any of us can actually feel comfortable, but it'll just feel really good at the end. So that's what I think will happen. I'm going to say 17-14 for Patriots.
Okay, so you heard it from the three of us. So yeah, we will be back likely at some point. We don't know entirely when, likely to recap this big game regardless. But yeah, that's going to be our episode for all of our listeners. We hope you enjoy the holiday time with your family and friends. And yeah, we will be back at some point. Are you going to
Just a quick thing.
Yeah, go on.
Josh Allen wished for Christmas for a performance from the Bills on Sunday. So as much as I would love the Bills to have a happy holidays, I will be hoping that the Grinch takes that one.
I guess we'll see if Josh Allen has been naughty or nice.
That is very true. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Definitely. But yeah, let's see what happens. But again, to all of our listeners, enjoy the holiday time. And yep, we will be back at some point to recap this game. And yep, have a good one, guys. Enjoy the holidays.
Happy holidays.